Liverpool superstar Mo Salah has tested positive for COVID-19 while on international duty with the Egyptian national team. Here we see a list of some of the games that he could miss. Obviously, the World Cup qualifier is a great concern for Egypt. As for Liverpool, massive game November 22nd against Leicester City in the Premier League, and then 3 days after that, midweek against Atalanta. Aage, this has been a bad international break for Liverpool, and it only seems to be getting worse.
It does, but what are you going to do? And I think this is where the criticism of people just kind of getting all worked up and saying, why are we having international breaks? Why are we playing with our national teams? What's going on? Well, okay. If you're going to make that argument because of your concerns of COVID-19 and what the repercussions could be, in this case for Mohamed Salah, last month it was Cristiano Ronaldo, so on and so forth, well, you can also make the argument and say, why are we playing Champions League? Does that not involve international travel? Does that not involve Barcelona going to Ferencváros in Hungary and Ferencváros going to Barcelona and so on and so forth, and you can continue to go down that path? So my point essentially is, if indeed we are truly concerned about COVID-19, and it's not just because we want to pick on international soccer, if we just want to talk about the health and the safety protocols of the players, then where do we stop? Why do we play Champions League? Why do we play Copa Libertadores? Why do we play Copa Sudamericana and Europa League? All right? Where do we draw the line? And that, to me, is essentially saying, look, people care more about their domestic leagues. In this case, Liverpool fans care about Mohamed Salah. Juventus fans care about Cristiano Ronaldo. And they couldn't care less about what's going on in international soccer. And to that point, I will say to you, well, it's hypocrisy. Because if we are concerned about health, then let's not stop with international soccer. Let's go down the line and say, okay, this is not good either. That's international travel. That's travel over there. That's putting the players in peril over there too, and at risk over there too. So, to me, it's just a whole lot of nonsense. Either we play and we know that this is a risk, or we don't play and everybody stays home. And now, is that the solution? Is that where we want to go to? You know there are risks involved in this, whether you play Champions League, whether you play with an international team, whether you travel or not travel. The situation is not under control anywhere. Because if it was under control, everything would be open and everybody would be at the stadiums.
Yeah. Fair point. Look, a lot of people are upset about this. Jules, one of the first people that popped into my mind, other than Salah, obviously his family, is Jurgen Klopp. I mean, Klopp has been adamant. He's been screaming. He screamed at a reporter in a pre-match interview about the fixture list. And then just before this, he's complaining about international football, Jules. And the point that he's making is that the clubs feel like they're completely alone. He's going to be fuming, isn't he?
Yeah, he would be fuming, although Ali makes a great point about, players travel as well with their club and can also be positive with COVID-19. We saw it many times as well outside of the international break and the national team bubble. So I don't think the two should be linked. However, where Klopp had a very, very solid point was that why in a very congested season with so many fixtures at club level and domestically and in Europe, why do we play so much international football, international breaks? And of course, federations and FIFA and UEFA have other points to put forward. But you're right, you do wonder why the Nations League, for example, hasn't been shortened. For example, less games played. Why do we still have those friendlies like we had on Wednesday night, adding another game into those international breaks? There's millions of questions that are left with no answers right now, which is a real shame. And certainly the wider picture is that it is to the detriment of players, whether it's COVID-19, injury, short injuries like the one Alexander-Arnold staying with Liverpool suffered against Man City, longer injuries like the Virgil van Dijk one or the Joe Gomez one at Liverpool as well. It's to the detriment of players.
Jan, you played for Norway. You represented your country in a World Cup. I know you have a lot of love for international football. Right now, though, is international football worth it?
Yeah, I think it's worth it, but I think there are some unnecessary games that shouldn't be done. We should do the qualification. As for Norway, we had to play Israel on Wednesday. That game was taken away, and rightly so, because that was about the third place in the Nation League. That didn't have to happen, and it didn't happen, and I like that. But I think that we should, as football lovers, we should mind us not talking about COVID-19 as a football problem. COVID-19 is a society problem. And if you get players to travel, if you get them to travel to Egypt or to Norway or Israel or France, whatever, there is a risk. And I agree. We have to decide what we're going to do. I mean, that could happen if you travel from Manchester to Shrewsbury in England for a League Cup game. That could happen. And I think that we have to put it in the right perspective here. Should we say that football should stop during the COVID-19? I think it's very important that in these dark times, because it's dark and people has not a lot to look forward to. We can't go to a football game, or we can't see our grandmothers, grandfathers. I think in a time like this, football is very important. And I've been staying home now. I'm not traveling for Champions League, although I went to Rome and Amsterdam, coming back, having a quarantine in Norway. And I must say that I'm also very proud how football has treated COVID-19. I saw Lazio Dortmund, fantastic arrangement, and I felt very, very safe, as I did Ajax against Liverpool. So on the other hand, yes, we got some positive tests for some players. On the other hand, I think football also as a business have done this very, very good.
Jules, the contemporaries, the players that you talk to on the record, off the record, are you hearing from people who have maybe a similar mindset to what we heard from Toni Kroos, who feels like he's being used as a puppet by UEFA and FIFA? Or do you hear from players kind of what we're hearing from the guys on this panel, the defense, and what we heard from Shaka on yesterday's show, the defense of the value of international football?
Yes, and I spoke to Andy Robertson straight after the Man City-Liverpool game. And obviously for Scotland, it was a very different international break because there was so much at stake with the game against Serbia. But he said, we all want to play for our country. Of course you do. Jan wanted, Ale wanted to go. They would have gone. We saw Sergej Milinkovic-Savic, who was not really supposed to leave Rome and Italy to travel to go with Serbia to play that Scotland game. But he said, I have to go. This is the biggest game of the season for me and for my country. So I think players all over the world, it's their dream to play for their country, for the national team. They all want to do it. However, there's certainly a feeling right now, more and more amongst them, that they've played so many games already. Some have been lucky not to get injured, others have already been injured. There's the feeling that it's a lot already, that they are tired, that they can feel their body is really stretched, is borderline to injuries for the one who haven't been injured, who've been lucky not to be injured so far. So there's a bit of both, but of course they want to play for their country. This is something amazing in a career, especially the games that we saw for Scotland yesterday, for example. But I think there's also a big feeling of like it starts to get too much already.
Jules, do you think there's any chance that come the spring, if we're in the same place that we are now, we see UEFA and FIFA maybe give these guys a break on the international breaks?
But no, because certainly for the ones who have qualified for Euro 2020 in 2021, they will have to prepare that competition. So you will need that time to work with your national team squads, have friendlies, or work on the training ground. You don't have your players for many days when you're a national team head coach. So in a way, I would understand why Deschamps and others, for example, would say to UEFA, hang on, I need my boys now. We're preparing for the Euros. This is a huge competition for us. We need that time. So it's a very, very tricky situation because everybody has different interests. And I just don't think it can be solved now. Gareth Southgate the other day was saying we need to sit down on the table. It's too late now. The season has been arranged already. We've got all the fixtures, all the list, all the scheduling has been done already. And that's the way it has to be, unfortunately or fortunately, I don't know, until the end of the season.
Boys,
go ahead, yeah.
Okay. Now, just saying, as we've seen the Liverpool injury voice, and you can understand Jurgen Klopp when you see this list, of course, but this is not only with international games, but I think that what we need to have a look at is how many games these players are playing, are traveling, and so on and so on. But I 100% agree with Jules. We can't talk about that now. Then the clubs have to get involved when the plan for the season is done. This is also a power battle between the Premier League, between UEFA, between FIFA, and so on, and the other international football federations. And it's time now for sports. It's time for football clubs to get their people into decision-making positions. We always end up saying, well, there's something wrong with the guys with the blazer. They have no clue about football. Well, get involved then. Don't only complain about what is happening when we come to November and one of your players is injured. Then you have to be there when the decisions are made. Football is run with a lot of idiots in the big places, in the big federations. But they are there because the clubs don't want to get involved. Where are the former players that are getting involved? The former players do like me. They're sitting in a studio somewhere and say we should do this and that. Then we have to be involved in sports politics. That's where we have to start.
Wait, is Jan politicking for a position here? Is this what's happening? Is this what's going on?
No. I was working for the anti-doping organization WADA against anti-doping, and I see how many former athletes are there. And the former athletes like out there, like Edwin Moses or Becky Scott of Canada, who did a fantastic job, they have been told not to speak. We need to get the athletes into the decision making. Then they wouldn't have to play so many games, because people who do it now, they are elected or chosen to do that. We can't go on like this. We can't only complain. What does that help us?
Very quickly about scheduling and the concerns of scheduling and why we have to play these games. I'll give you an example of CONMEBOL, where they have to play 18 matches, so they have to find 18 dates. Okay, World Cup's in 2022. Now we're within 2 years of that, and up until this point, you've only played 2 matches. Okay, where do you find the time? And so whenever you do have these international breaks, you have to be able to then make sure that you take advantage of these opportunities and make sure that you squeeze these games in. If you're CONMEBOL, you're already behind. You're a year behind of what you usually do. You start your qualifiers usually, as per my experience, 3 years ahead of the World Cup. Now you are 2 years down the road, and you still haven't really started. And so the truth of the matter is you're already behind. You're playing catch-up, as is everybody else in the world. So, hey, guess what? Stop the complaining. It is going to be difficult. You're going to have to play a lot of games. And to be honest with you, some of the club coaches and some of the national team coaches, instead of whining about each other, they have to start working together.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.